morning. It's June the 13th, 2024. It's a Thursday morning right here in Lagos. And welcome to the Morning Brief. I'm Kayode Okikilu.
Well, June wears on, but we're definitely not worn out, but we're wearing more strength, grace, and determination to pursue our dreams. Good morning, and welcome to the Morning Brief. I am Bukola Koka.
Well, it's a day after the public holiday for Democracy Day. Another public holiday coming perhaps next week, so there's a lot of time to rest. Our responsibility is, whilst you're home resting, is to bring you up to speed with what's happening in the polity. That's why we're here this morning on the Morning Brief. Welcome to the program. I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
You know, I'm an advocate for equal opportunities for every day of the week, whether it's a Friday, it's a public holiday, or a work day. All days matter. So for those who maybe didn't get a public holiday yesterday, don't worry. You're doing your own bit. Just like all days matter, everybody also matters as well. It's the day after June 12th, guys, and I know that there was a lot of chatter yesterday. Social media was on fire yesterday. Not like it's not usually on fire, but the fire was like a few degrees hotter yesterday. But all in all, while we walk through some of those big events yesterday, here's a point. If you're on social media, make sure you're making the most of it. Absolutely. So don't just see it as a random tool for catching crews and all of that, because on that same social media, people are making thousands and millions of dollars. So it's a matter of approach. That's my angle to this before we get into those obvious events that happened yesterday.
Well, Kayode, for me, the biggest reaction came from the president himself, that the fall, I imagine, was the biggest talking point, was for democracy. And, you know, they say that our greatest glory is never falling, but in rising every time that we fall. So perhaps we must give kudos to the president for his quick recovery and, of course, his reaction, and for the statesmanship demonstrated by who we would have described as the president's opponents, who empathized with him, you know, at that very difficult time. Jeffrey.
Well, you know, it's when politicians talk, they can make lots of inferences from incidents. Well, the man is over 70 years old. He slipped. He stood up and he went about his business and all of that. At the end of the day, a lot of people made a big deal out of it. Others said, well, it's just a fall. So wherever you stand is okay. That's why it's called social commentary, you know. Well, the president himself made a joke out of it. He says the ballet for democracy and all of that. But I think it added a bit of spice to the day. In case you didn't have anything to talk about, or you didn't even watch the speech early in the morning, this was an opportunity for you to have something to say. But we're happy. He made a quick recovery and did his activity, and the rest of the day was fine. So, but there are bigger issues to deal with in the country.
But you know, I got a message from someone early this morning, essentially walking through that particular event. And I think it's a lesson we can learn broadly as Nigerians, and essentially talked about, you know, doing like a safety assessment. So think about the podium, the steps. Is it too high? It's just like planning. You know, as you said, the president is over 70. So what kind of assessment was done for that area, for those steps, for the vehicle itself? Understanding that this is not a 40-year-old that can just hop on steps. So are the steps, are they less steep than they ought to be? These are the things, and questions about even the people around him. How much did they help him when he was going to climb onto that? So this is not just for what happened to the president. We can also take this to other areas of our lives as a nation. Are we planning as we ought to? Do we do scenario planning as we ought to? Do we think into the future, troubleshoot and say, okay, if this were to happen, how would we respond to it? Or how should we ensure that whatever policies, and this is going back to government, we put out, okay, you get the point. So I'm just going to leave it there. Bukola, you gave me out there.
How did I do that, Kayode?
I saw the chuckle.
Well, I was just going to, you know, reflecting further on it, I was just going to say that it's a difficult conversation to have. We know that the president's gait is not that of a 40-year-old, neither is it that of a 50-year-old. You know, we watched with concern on Inauguration Day, you know, how it was a strain for him to walk to the podium alone. So the president's aide must be more responsive, and this is not in any way to diminish in his strength and hard work for which most of his aides have given him credit for. They've talked about how hardworking and hands-on this president is, but the president's aides should be more responsive, knowing full well that his gait is not that of a 50-year-old or a 40-year-old. There are some concerns sometimes, when the president has to exert physical activity, particularly for public events of that nature. So perhaps they must be, more alert when assisting the president during physical activity.
So there you go. That's just, as Jeffrey said, by the way, but I think he got a lot of people talking about Democracy Day. So
at least young people got involved. I'm not sure of how many young people listened to this speech, but at least they saw the president slip, fall, stand up,
and they just realized,
today's Democracy Day.
Let's go back to the speech.
And the president now, kind of compounded by saying,
but Jeffrey, as you said, there are bigger fish to fry. So while the president is saying that, this is Dobale for democracy, we must see the results of democracy.
So let's get right into it. It is back to work, as we said, not just for workers in Nigeria, but for the government after that Democracy Day celebration yesterday. So on the show today, we sit down with one of the names on the president's roll call. Quite a number of names the president reeled out yesterday as those who fought for the democracy, essentially wresting power from military dictatorship. So the question we'll be asking on the show is, how does today's democracy match up to what they fought for? So we have a chat, a sit down with one of those heroes mentioned yesterday, and there you see him on the screen.
Kyrie, I couldn't agree more. Big question there. But that's not all. The last may not have been heard about the recent ruling of a Port Harcourt High Court, which has thrown up different inferences and interpretations. But what did the judge, Justice David Degema, really rule about the Martins Amewule group? Get the facts, not the fiction today.
Exactly. So we go behind the scene, leave all of the big political talks and go to our movie industry. We're joined by a talented mastermind behind some of the captivating soundtracks of our favorite Nollywood films, from the haunting melodies of Beast of Two Worlds to the pulse-pounding scores of Battle on Boca Street. Who is behind all of this, energizing the narrative and the dialogue and everything in between? You'll find out right here on the show. In our culture, they say you are unveiling the masquerade, because this man is responsible for some of those emotions you feel during the movies. But that's not all. We're tracking your reactions across social media, and your comments are up, as always, in the next 10-15 minutes. So keep them coming on X, that's hashtag CTV Morning Brief, just right there at the bottom of the screen. And guess what? WhatsApp is also available for you, just in case you didn't know. That is a number with which you can reach us right here. So if you want to reach Jeffrey, Bukola, and Kayode.
All three of us.
All three of us. I have repented. That is the number. Send us your comments, your messages. If you've got videos as well, send them in. We are here just for you.
Send all the messages. I could see some level of preparations for festivity along Kara Road. In case you're around there and you're watching, let's have a picture. If you drive through that road, Nigeria is not really that hard this period when you drive through that road.
Right.
Because if Nigeria is that hard, the number of purchases, no excuses. There's a lot of economic challenges. But I love Nigerians. No matter how hard things are, we see those festivities, we can't skip it.
We always turn up.
So don't give us,
save up
do not give us any advisory when it comes to our festivity. Fix the economy, allow us to use our money the way we like.
There you go.
So you can purchase your RAM and take a selfie and post.
All right. So we take a moment now while you're doing all of that. We're back with the top stories. These are the talking points. So stay with us right here. It's a morning brief. Stories at this hour. It's the morning after Nigeria's Democracy Day celebration, and President Bola Tinubu has been reacting to that trending video of him tripping at the Eagle Square in Abuja, saying democracy is worth falling for. Well, President Tinubu missed a step while climbing the vehicle for a parade at the square during an event for the 2024 Democracy Day, but he quickly regained his balance with the help of his aides and continued with the activities for the day. Speaking about the incident during a dinner to mark the day much later, the president joked about it and said that he had only dobale for democracy. Now, dobale is a Yoruba term which implies paying homage or respect in the Yoruba culture.
Early this morning, I had a swagger, and it's on the social media. They are confused whether our people can or but it is a day to celebrate democracy. Why do we double for the day? I'm a traditionally Yoruba.
Well, that's Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu speaking there. But talking of the bigger picture, the other big issues that played out yesterday, the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC has refuted President Bola Tinubu's statement that an agreement between Labour and government on a new minimum wage has been reached. The union, in a statement by its acting president, Adewale Adeyanju, said that no such agreement was made, and the demand for a minimum wage of 250,000 naira remains unchanged. Now, part of the statement reads, the NLC would have expected that the advisors of the president would have told him that we neither reached any agreement with the federal government and employers on the base figure for a national minimum wage, nor on its other components. Our demand still remains 250,000 naira. The NLC adds that it has not received a copy of the document submitted to the president and will not accept any doctored document. Meanwhile, the Minister of Information, Mr. Mohammed Idris, has been speaking on federal government stance on the new national minimum wage, stressing that the government is not opposed to it, but is seeking a more realistic wage that will not undermine the nation's economy. Speaking at a forum organized by the Charismatic Bishops Conference in Abuja, the minister explains that the government is not unmindful of the well-being of Nigerians, but has come up with measures to ameliorate their plight and improve the living conditions of all. Now, ahead of the resolution of a crisis over the national minimum wage, a civil society group, Concerned Nigerian Patriots, is asking members of organized labor to desist from making what they call demands that will worsen the nation's economic challenges. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the chairman of the group, Mr. Alpha Mohammed, says the demand by the leadership of organized labor is capable of threatening the nation's economic stability and democratic integrity. Now, there are ongoing discussions essentially about how the system of government has shaped our national life. And at the Platform Nigeria, which is a special program of a covenant nation in Lagos, speakers dissected the relations between democracy and the free market economy as it plays out in Nigeria. And among them, the Governor of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Yakubu Dogara, and former Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babatunde Fashola.
During my time as Speaker as well, we were exploring the possibility of patronizing innocent mortals. But that time, I think they hadn't advanced to the level they have attained as of today. And I sat also as Speaker and said if I could convince the House to take my decision to patronize Peugeot when I was House Services Chairman, then there's no way I can now go for Camry or some other exotic models. We must buy Peugeot. And the reason was simply to give impetus to the fact that we must not only patronize made in Nigeria goods, we should take pride in what we produce, and we should sustain the livelihood of the Nigerian workers.
Sometimes I wish that we will pay everybody minimum of 1 million. Okay? 2 million, 5 million even. I wish. But the reality is, you bring the numbers and put it on the table. I just said at the best of estimates I can get, unless something changes tomorrow, federal government's actual revenue will probably not exceed 17 trillion this year. If you share it to all Nigerians, it comes to 6,160 naira per person per month. That's what it comes out per capita. If you take even the total 28.7 trillion and share, it will come down to 10,000 naira per person per month. I'm talking about per capita. If I take my state, I've told you, if you share every revenue that we got, it comes down to less than 2,500 per person. Now, but this money belongs to all Nigerians.
Well, staying with the event around the Democracy Day, Nigeria's security chiefs and actors have been speaking on the challenges faced by the sector and ways to curb them. Speaking on Channels Television Security Summit and Town Hall in the nation's capital, Abuja, the Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa explains that the northern part of Nigeria is fighting an asymmetric warfare, and there is a need for all to join hands against the non-state actors.
We are dealing with asymmetric warfare, which is a new kind of warfare. It's different from the conventional term, and that's what we want to make very clear. Conventional warfare is between country to country. Now, asymmetric warfare, you are dealing with non-state actors, people you don't know, people that are your own. I give you some examples. Sometimes when we go on cordon and search operations, the same village you get in, they hide the weapons, catch them, they don't have anything, and you proceed. And they dig out these weapons and fire you from the rear. It is difficult because you don't even know who is your enemy. Everybody is an enemy. There is no front. Everywhere, is a front as much as possible. Now, the challenges we're having is that understanding. I'm happy that it is changing. And if you see from what the armed forces and the police are doing now, we are being very people-centric in our approach because we understand that asymmetric warfare has to do with the people. It did not start now. It has started since. My advice always is no country should allow asymmetric warfare to commence. It is difficult to eradicate. Why? You are dealing with ideology. And once you have that ideology built in, it's difficult because you see the person, you don't know what he's thinking about. You don't know what is in his mind. We have seen people that we have told them they are still telling us that we are wrong and they are right, as it is. So we need to come together as a country to be able to tackle this, and it should be nipped in the bud for every country, I advise.
Well, the CDS speaking on the asymmetric nature of insecurity in Nigeria, but on his part, the Deputy Inspector General of Police Research and Planning, Mr. Dasuki Galadanji, adds that the challenges faced by the police is not just manpower.
You can see we are now recruiting and we are now replacing those people. Very soon there will be training of 10,000 policemen. It will be followed by additional 10,000 and then 10,000 again. The president has graciously approved 30,000. That will add value. Again, it's not even issue of number, it's issue of capacity. And the IG had already identified that, and he has given that order. There is 3 days training, 5 days training, 7 days training. As I told you, we identify our local problems, use local solution, we solve it. And that is exactly what we are doing. Issue of funding, issue of lack of manpower, all is by the way. What is it that we are doing now with the manpower that we have? And that is exactly what I told you we are doing, and it's yielding result.
But that's not all. The governor of Zamfara State, Mr. Dauda Lawal, insists that if he's given full powers, he will end insecurity in the state in 2 weeks.
Military, nor the police or the civil defense. If we are really committed and we have the political will, all this issue of banditry, kidnapping, cattle rustling, and other form of insecurity, we can handle this within 2 weeks. And I mean it, and I still repeat it. If I have the power now, and if they're under my control, believe me, in 2 weeks, we'll be able to finish the issue of banditry and kidnapping in my state. There's no two way about it.
And on to party politics now. The immediate past National Vice Chairman Northwest of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC, Mr. Saliu Lukman, has resigned from the party. In a statement released in Kaduna, Mr. Lukman blamed his resignation on the lack of internal democracy and President Bola Tinubu's disallowing reforms within the party, he says. He declared that he has gone back to the trenches with other political leaders ahead of the 2027 general elections, adding that Nigeria must grow her democracy to the point where elected representatives at all levels are accountable to the party and Nigerians. Well, let's talk business now. Economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company has forecast Nigeria's inflation to hit 34.32% in May, and that's from 33.69% in April, marking the 5th consecutive increase this year. Well, this projection comes as the National Bureau of Statistics scheduled to release May's inflation data this week. Food inflation is expected to rise to 41.2%, while core inflation will increase slightly to 27.2%, mainly due to currency pressures. And outside the country, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Hamas has proposed numerous changes to a U.S.-backed plan for a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal, which currently hangs in the balance. He told reporters in Doha that some of the changes were workable and others were not, but that the U.S. and mediators, as Qatar and Egypt, will try to close this deal. And sports news. 4 teams, Ikorodu City, Nasarawa United, El Kanemi Warriors, and Beyond Limits have been promoted to the Nigeria Premier Football League, the NPFL. Ikorodu City will be playing in the country's Premier Football League for the first time in their history after they, alongside 3 others, secured their slot following the NNL Super 8 playoff, while Ikorodu City and Beyond Limits were the top 2 in the Southern Conference of the NNL. El Kanemi Warriors and Nasarawa United finished tops in the Northern Conference. Well, El Kanemi Warriors beat Sokoto United 4-1 to match second after earning 6 points to finish second. Well, those are the top stories at this hour. Congratulations to those 4 teams. Well, that means some other teams will be relegated from the MPFL, but not to worry. Jeffrey joins me right now to walk through your talking points. Jeffrey.
I almost said Bukola.
I mean, we're one. You can call me Bukola.
I was so excited to hear about the Ikorodu City. Yeah, because it's been a while we saw a lot of Lagos teams, right, making it to the MPFL with all that Lagos has in terms of being the commercial nerve center. Literally all the banks in Nigeria, the headquarters here, so many other multinationals headquarters here, and we expect that sports should as well have that level of prominence. So we're seeing Ikorodu City joining the MPFL. We wish them the very best and congratulations to them. And for those that were relegated,
I'm hoping Sporting Lagos will not find themselves in that spot of being relegated now for Ikorodu to take over, because Sporting Lagos has had its own challenges. It's a very vibrant club, I must say, with fan support and all, but they've been struggling. So maybe they are sobbing for each other. Who knows?
I don't know, but let's find out what you've been saying on X. So, yes, the very first we have here Nigerian storm major streets in Lagos to protest hardship occasioned by the economic reforms of the present administration. And so some Nigerians felt that June 12 was a good day given the history of that struggle. It was first about restore democracy because there was an election, someone won that election. Why did you annul that election? And the premise of that election, the campaigns around that election was about economic hardship primarily, the MK Obiola and the rest of them. And so Nigerians felt that this is an opportunity to re-echo all of that. Well, there was a division as to was it right, was it not right, and all of that. So, Beck, you've been saying, sharing your thought. Meiji says, the government should look into the cost of living for the common man. Foodstuff are not affordable, no security, no basic health facility, no electricity, transportation not affordable. Education is zero according to that rating. Rents have tripled. In fact, the common Nigerian are shadows of themselves.
Take a look at what Niger Famous says about this. With meager salary and allowance, poorly covered insurance, next to zero housing scheme, bad loan processes, and frustrated retirement benefits, this user hopes that one day all the officers, and this is even targeted at the security operatives, who would have thought, would realize that they stand to benefit more from this kind of protest. I think it was relating this to the, the security around the protest and what was said to have happened regarding that. So, at
the end of the day, people have said allow people to protest. Is when mischievous elements now try to hijack, then you can sweep in as institution of state. Do not use the institution of state with veiled threats and all of that. The current leadership, I'm talking about the APC, came because there was a freedom of expression to fight for the common man. From social media, on the street, there are images and videos and people living and dead. there are weaknesses to this. So as soon as you tamper with freedom of expression, you're tampering with democracy, and the president advocated for democracy seriously yesterday. Chile_Matrix says, we honestly don't have anything to celebrate. If there is any celebration today, that's at yesterday, it is the camp of the APC and probably some those who support the president. But what we practice today is far from what democracy truly stands for. Yeah.
So we switch attention now to another event that played out at Eagle Square yesterday. Not the one that we've talked about earlier. It's about what has been described as the world's largest canvas painting. It was unveiled yesterday. You may have seen us on the show previewing it. It was covered with Nigeria's flag. But yesterday, much later, it was unveiled. And guess what it was? It was President Bola Tinubu's portrait. So this is what you have been saying about it. Oladapo Miki1 says, hunger in Nigeria. And how will unveiling this help or decrease hunger, insecurity, and inflation? Well, this user thinks this is misplaced priority.
Akin says, unveiling of the largest portrait on canvas at the occasion do not speak to the spirit of the celebration of democracy at all. For me, it speaks and carries a different undertone. I can't see nor understand the significance of that portrait.
Well, there you go. Annie_Ukpana is next. That's Annie has this to say. The resources used to do this will have been better invested elsewhere. But now, all we do now is focus on things that aren't even beneficial to the citizens and the well-being of the economy. So to get the context of this, well, you know what? I'm just going to leave it out there. Just keep your comments coming.
You can see there's a debate over prioritization. Yeah. What is down, what is necessary, what is not necessary in terms of optics and all of that. That is the debate of the people who are speaking on X. So I think there's another issue that has to do with multi-choice, right?
Yeah.
Posting losses due to drop in subscriber. So how many of you subscribe or resubscribe, if you will? Gabriel 1 Isaiah says they should better start pay as you go for them to get their customers back. DSTV Nigeria not being fair to Nigerians in his view. Nigerians barely get light to watch TV and feel it's expensive. How many people will continue renewing their subscription without getting value for it?
Well, Osirik Beme is the next user on this one, and you understand how or why this is important to Nigeria. It says in another month, they may see more losses in patronage, and I think this user is advising pay-per-view just as well, privilege to choose viewing channels, improved channel content, reduce or extend repeating programs. That is what this user. So it's like a democracy right now. People suggested.
People have been proposing this pay-per-view. So on the other hand, people are not happy with the model.
Right.
On the next leg of it is the fact that they have competition now because there is streaming platforms.
Right.
And people now have a lot of smart TVs at the list, and so they have options. You know. Okay. Osasumi Tunde says people are finding it hard to eat. Rather than maintaining the price, they came out with outrageous price and yet expect people to keep subscribing. You know, they are also a business in Nigeria, feeling the bites of the reforms in the economy. So perhaps cost push.
Naturally. Emmy for Life 02 is the final comment of this one. Says the purchasing power of the people has been significantly reduced, so no more disposable income to subscribe. So there you have it. These are some of the major talking points, but that's by no means the end. So keep your comments coming in. #CTV Morning Brief and on WhatsApp as well. You see that during the course of the show. We're starting off with a big one. What we ordered versus what we got. That's one of the major talking points. Plus what is playing out in Rivers State with the court judgment. What is a fact? What is the fiction? So send in your thoughts as we take a moment now to start off with the conversation. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the program. So as we start off, we're going to be digging deep into some legalese this morning, as Jeffrey would call it, particularly after looking closely at the Rivers State Court judgment declaring that Martin Amewule-led State House of Assembly are still PDP members. Looking closely at it, it seemed as if there was some bit of confusion, particularly after the Rivers State Attorney General debunked that court judgment right after it emerged some 3 days ago. And recall, after our conversation, right after that, we had said that we'll be hoping that the Pro-Fubara camp would be willing to speak. And so this morning, we're joined on the program by Mr. Peppel, a legal practitioner, Mr. Tonye Sipoto Peppel, a legal practitioner and lawyer who joins us via Zoom from Port Harcourt. Good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief, Mr. Peppel.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. So we got a copy of the court judgment, and that's where I'd like to start. And there are 3 highlights from that judgment, which say very little or nothing, in fact, about declaring Martin Amewule-led faction of the Rivers State Assembly being PDP members. So I'd like to highlight just those 3 high points of Justice Basam's ruling. The first one says that this suit is hereby dismissed and struck out for want of jurisdiction. The People's Democratic Party hereby joined as a 4th defendant. And lastly, that the claimant's case be and is hereby dismissed for lacking in merit. So where did the confusion come from? Is it a misunderstanding of the judge's ruling by journalists, as is often cited sometimes, or someone misinformed the journalist to report the case as it was reported?
Okay, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that it's a misunderstanding by the journalist. And that is why lawyers are referred to as learned men. When a judge gives a judgment, there are 2 parts of it. There's a part known as the ratio decidendi, and there's a part known as obiter dictum. That might sound like legalese, but the ratio decidendi is the mix, the real reason the court decision was given, the rationale backing the court's decision on the issue and the facts before the court. The obiter dictum are things we say the court said in passing because the court has the liberty as well as the judicial immunity to say its mind even in its judgment. And sometimes judges use this liberty to express their philosophy regarding judgment. In this particular judgment, the matter was brought by originating son. The crux of the matter revolves around Section 100 of the Constitution as the Section 109G of the Constitution. The payment or principle to declare in the affirmative that Mr. Martin Amewule and 26 other lawmakers, as they were no longer members of the Rivers State House of Assembly, having defected to another party. That was the crux. Now, going through the argument, His Lordship, Dr. Ubasa, sought to first assess whether he had jurisdiction to hear the matter. And issues of jurisdiction must be settled first before the court assumes that he has jurisdiction. And in his wisdom, he thought that the claimants lacked local standards or the legal capacity to bring this action in the first place. Secondly, he also thought, in his wisdom, that the subject matter of this suit was not within the purview of the River State. So that was the rationale of this particular matter. The other issue you referred to came about when the law did what judicial officers always when tackling the issue of jurisdiction. In his judgment, he said, assuming that my decision on jurisdiction is wrong, let me look at the case brought before. And that is where journalism was brought.
So would it be in order, Mr. Pepple, would it be in order in the near future for there to be some sort of guidance for an interpretation of court judgments or rulings? Because very few journalists may be aware of what you describe as arbiter dictum in the future to guard against such confusions.
Yes, I think that reputable stations, channel have colleagues of mine, their employment, and if those news organizations don't have that kind of privilege, you could retain a lawyer to look through the judgment and give you what is the guide that you put out in your news reel. The part of whether or not the claimants had made out their case wasn't the meat of that judgment. The court couldn't have made any pronouncement enforceable by law if it had already decided that he had no jurisdiction. So that's why it is obiter dictum. It is not what we hold on to in this judgment. What is relevant for us to hold on to this judgment is that the court says, I do not have jurisdiction. The claimants who brought this matter have not shown that they have local standard, that they have actions of the defendant, and those actions have affected them more than any other members of the public. They have not shown that they are members of the House of Assembly. They have not shown that they are members of the PDP or the AP. They have not placed any materials before me to enable me assume jurisdiction. That is the decision of this court in this matter. It wasn't about membership.
All right, Mr. Pepple.
Because, as it were, the court does not, has in his wisdom said it does not have jurisdiction in this matter.
All right, Mr. Pepple, let's backtrack a bit. I don't know, we don't have the full value of the entire copy of the CTC. We see the order here, which is the most substantive element of that judgment in the eyes of the law. But do you have an idea what the pleas were that necessitated this judgment? Because one of the ruling is that the claimant's case is hereby dismissed for lacking in merit. That presupposes, as you said, that they don't have the local standard on this particular issue. Some may interpret it differently as to return to status quo. You know, there are different ways to look at this thing. So on that particular last order, maybe you bring a bit of clarity for us. We understand the issue of jurisdiction, the issue of bringing a fourth defendant as a PDP into the case who applied for it, we understand. And then this issue of dismissal for lacking in merit.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, Mr. Pepple.
Okay, like I said, the confusion came about.
Oh, dear. It appears we're having a bit of a challenge. Obviously, we're having a bit of a challenge with the network as far as that conversation. But we're hoping that we can get Mr. Pepple back as soon as possible, just as a bit of a background for anyone who is not familiar with the story. So A few days ago, there was okay.
My decision.
Oh, I understand is almost back again. Anyway, guys, well, they say sometimes technology is not a silver bullet. So this is a classic case. But I was saying that for context, as Bukola has said, that judgment came out, and the initial impression everyone got was that the judge ruled that Martins Amewola and 26 others or 25 others are still members of the PDP and not APC, because what we heard was that their names are not in the register of the APC, no, the APC now. And registers have to be updated.
Oh, their names are not even, they're still on the register of the PDP.
They are still on the register of the PDP. Their names are not on the register of the APC. And then the issue of the what do you call it now? The resignation letter, because you're supposed to write to your ward chairman and all of that, saying that you've left. So we couldn't cite some of these docs. So those were the things a lot of people were running with as to what that judgment meant. But when we finally got a hold of what you're seeing on the screen, what you're seeing on the screen is actually the court judgment, which is the substantive thing that is, can be appealed or justiciable or taken to another court. Whatever was said is what the lawyers call obiter dictum, means just the opinion of the judge. But if there's anything that holds true and strong, enforceable, as they call it in law, that is what you're looking at, which was brought to our attention by the Attorney General of Rivers State, Mr. Baroma Nagogo, who brought this to everyone's attention, that there is nowhere in this order that presupposes that a judge at any point in time ruled that they are still members of the PDP. So we're trying to get the perspective. We had a conversation with Mr. Wari on Monday when he came out. Now we're having a conversation with Mr. Pepple, who's giving us another dimension to it. Mr. Pepple, can you hear me if you're back?
Yes, I can hear you. And I had the benefit of seeing the enrolled order. What you were showing the viewers was the enrolled order. But I also have the benefit of having seen the 76-page judgment, certified true copy of the 76-page judgment of his lordship. And that is where I'm speaking from. All the issues you were raising about membership, about have reference to be members because you are registered on your party, on the political party's register, or that you have a ward membership card, where all, as far as this judgment is concerned, obiter dictum. It was after my lord had made the decision, or taken the decision, that he had no jurisdiction to hear this matter on the basis of local standards. So if that, we all agreed at that, as you can see on the enrolled order, then every other thing said after that point, obiter dictum. It said in passing, it was the judge's opinion, just if he was wrong when he made and thrust of his judgment, which was that he had no jurisdiction. Yeah.
Right. So if this case, and that has been the other argument, because we had another legal practitioner, Mr. Wari, as Jeffrey mentioned, speaking about this. He agreed that, yes, the court said we don't have jurisdiction, we're striking this out, but that the heart of this is what really determines the membership of a politician, in this case, members of a House Assembly, their membership of a political party. Is it mere announcement or the real membership register of the party that connotes or eventually decides whether or not you're still a member? So my question is this: if this case were to be decided upon properly by a court of competent jurisdiction, are you saying that a different ruling, or at least something different, may be said from that court other than what the judge said in this instance? Okay, the audio is not coming out well. It looks like maybe it's your listening device or your earpiece. We'll try to resolve that and get back to you. It's been a bit tricky having this conversation really with the connection, but we'll make it happen because we know that Rivers State has been in the eye of a storm for months now, and it seems unending. So the little we can do to get some clarity and at least give the stakeholders, as they call them, at least the major players, a pulse of what the people think or what ought to be done right. We'll do as much as we can. So we'll try to rejoin you in a moment when all of that is sorted. But we're discussing the Rivers political situation. It's on our lineup this morning. But that's not all we have for you on the show this morning. We're still going to talk about some of the points the president raised yesterday about our heroes past. Some of the names on that roll call are names that are still present with us very much and are still contributing to democracy. So we'll have one of them who'll be joining us on the show this morning to speak to the question of what we ordered versus what we got. And I think maybe Rivers might be a good example, guys. Would you say this is the kind of democracy that was fought for 31 years ago, 25 years ago? Would you say this is really what it ought to be, what we're seeing playing out in Rivers? And it's not just Rivers, we have it scattered across the country.
And, you know, much of the commentators that we have had, or at least a handful of them who have tried to be objective about the matter in its entirety, who are not swinging to the governor's side or the minister of the FCT side, have appealed to both parties to, as much as possible, ensure that they put the interest of the Rivers people first ahead of any other, you know, disagreement or any governance issue that may be between them. But that's what we're sadly not seeing so far. You know, every day there is a commentary, there is a war of words between both parties, you know, about governance in Rivers State. And it leaves much to be desired, really, because of the political uncertainty in that state. We don't know what to expect in the coming days from either the minister of the FCT or parties to the minister of the FCT, or from the governor or parties to the governor. And, you know, another sad part of the commentary is how this is now becoming an ethnic war of sorts, you know, with some ethnic group or coloration aligning with the governor and another aligning with the minister of the FCT. Jeffrey, you're from that part of the country and you understand things a bit better. Perhaps you can also shed more light on.
Well, it's sad to say, going straight to this question, I don't think this is what people fought for. People did not fight for this level of, you know, control for whatever it is they are trying to control, because at the center of it, it's not impossible to think it's about control, whether it's political control, resource control, whatever it is, the control between all of this. And we see it across board. I don't think that the people who advocated for democracy, this is what they fought for. At the end of the day, there are concerns, as you've said, Bukola, when it comes to the tribal ethnic line. There is that consciousness amongst us. As a country, one of the things we're trying to achieve is that state of nationhood. It's been difficult for, we're going on 65 now, it'll be 64 years since independence. And a note of caution has to be sent to the political class. If you look at our history, and how the military incurred into civilian rule, it has to do with the behavior of politicians for the most part. When they seem not to agree and things escalate beyond control and the military sees an opportunity, which is perhaps the suspicion for which the president, I should say, was really talking about democracy. Because when you have a combination of discontent among the populace, given the economic reforms and the short-term pain, as is mentioned, for a long-term prosperity and all of that. And when you look at the issue of good governance and all of these elements, it's a gamut of issues put together. And when you look at what's happening in the sub-region of West Africa, it's important the president has to scream that democracy is still the best option. So I just don't want to look at it from the Rivers perspective. It's across board. Good governance, the CDS said it yesterday, good governance plays a key role in ensuring security at the end of the day. But we hope that Rivers State, there can be peace. Both parties can find a common ground so that we can move on from this imbroglio. It's totally unnecessary.
And we can list them, you know, security, where is security? Is there an end to kidnapping in that part or region of the country? Where is potable water? Where is power supply? Where is, you know, thriving commerce, entrepreneurship, empowerment for the youth, employment for the youth, to check urban-rural migration? These are not the issues that are in contention, obviously. So we must remind the warring factions that have thrown up all of these litigations that we keep having to talk about every now and then, that there must be an end to the war. This is by no means the end of the conversation. We hope that we'll have a better opportunity and a more clement network, you know, to have this conversation in the future, you know, to reflect the other side of the group. But we'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll take another critical look at the president's scholarly presentation on democracy yesterday, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
That 1 year ago, we entered our rites of passage to becoming a true and enduring democratic society. Going through this passage was hard and dangerous. During the fateful 6 years that followed, we fought and struggled for our natural rights as human beings, put on this earth by the divine hand of our Creator. We lost great heroes and heroines along the way. In this struggle, the winner of June 12, 1993 presidential election, Chief MKO Abiola, the most significant symbol of our democratic struggle, his wife, Kudirat, General Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, and Pa Alfred Iwani, amongst others, sacrificed their very lives. They bravely surrendered their fortunes so that our nation might have a better one. Let us honor the memories of Chief Anthony Enahoro, Chief Abraham Adesanya, Commodore Dan Sulaiman, Chief Athon Wanko, Chief Chukwuemeka Ezeibe, Admiral Ndibusi Kanu, Chief Frank Kokori, Chief Bola Ige, Chief Adekunle Ajasin, Chief Gani Udaudu, Chief Ayo Fasanmi, Chief Gani Fawemi, Chief Olabi Idrojaye, Dr. Beko Ransom Kuti, Chima Ubani, and others who have transited to higher realm. The sacrifices of General Alani Akinriyade, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, Professor Wole Soyinka, Chief Rab Obioha, Chief Colonel Adebayo, among many others, should never be forgotten.
Well, that's the President's Democracy Day speech, and it contained lots of names, as you've heard there. So today on the show, we're bringing you one of those names mentioned. By the way, this is not exhaustive. There are other names that were mentioned. In fact, some people raised issues that their names ought to have been mentioned, but obviously, all of the names cannot be mentioned, but we have joining us on the show this morning one of the prominent names mentioned. His name synonymous with the CLO, but you get a sense of what that means during the course of the conversation. We're joined by Honorable Oroh, former member of House of Representatives, former Executive Director, Civil Liberties Organization, CLO. He's a journalist, lawyer, human rights activist, joins us live from our Abuja studio. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you, and I don't know how you felt hearing the president mention your name. So let's start from there. How did it feel for you hearing the president mentioning your name And I imagine that is a big deal, but what was the significance for you?
Well, it's important that the president acknowledged the struggle that we waged over time to end military rule.
Right.
It is important that the president acknowledge the struggle we waged over time to end military rule. And as, like you said, I didn't hear the speech initially, but there was a WhatsApp group I belong, and I started getting calls from people everywhere saying that the president mentioned my name. Of course, I was thrilled, like you said, and there were a lot of people who were involved. The president could not have mentioned everybody, but the fact that now we have a president, who was part of the struggle, who was driven into exile, who was detained, and then he was driven into exile, and while in exile he was haunted from various, right across the West Africa coast and other parts of the country, and he survived it all, and he gave everything, he gave all the support to the pro-democracy struggle. I know personally some of the steps he took support the struggle, especially those names of especially those that are passed on, their families, and all that. So, well, that is the struggle is going to continue because we still need to entrench democracy. We still need to consolidate democracy. We still need to build democratic institutions because democracy is not the end. It's a means to an end. It's a road. It's a journey.
Right.
And as what we are looking for is good governance, like your colleague said. And if we have good governance, the people are happy, there's prosperity in the land, there's security in the land, and we have a nation that is self-restraining with strong institutions that are working. The situation like what you have in River State will not happen because the system will be driving itself. The people will come in, they will play their role and then leave, and then the institution will remain working for the people.
We want to.
So we have the rule of law.
Right. Pardon me.
That must be strengthened. We have the judiciary that must remain independent, and then we have the press must remain free. Journalists will not be harassed by anybody, not by the police, not by political people, and then we must have a vibrant civil society that we work, as part of the process to strengthen democracy and to defend democracy. So I think the journey just has to continue. We're still at this early stage of it.
And the president said that
25 years
much yesterday.
Relative democracy.
Right. If you can hear me, Honorable, yes, the president mentioned that. He said it time and again that this is something we have to continue with. But we want to get a benefit of your experience then, particularly for the younger generation who obviously did not experience it or were too young to even understand what was going on then. Because we're trying to compare what it was then with what it is now, what we fought for, and what we have right now. And I was looking through front pages of old newspapers, courtesy archiving. I see CLO boss arrested over pirate radio. So you were arrested. I saw other parts, CLO chief, Obasanjo's lawyer to face Aziza. So if you could just paint a picture of your experience then, maybe a short version of it, so we can understand what it was then, essentially.
Thank you very much. Let me say that Thank you very much.
Let's go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Let me say that I was a journalist like you. I came into journalism at around November. Well, I'd gone to school. I started around November '83, and then the coup happened December 31st, 1983. The military came in, so we had to. I was 23 years old. Now I'm 64. We started the struggle at that time, so because I saw myself as using journalism to defend the defenseless. I felt military rule must never be allowed because they had they didn't have the mandate of the people. Even though there were problems with the Shagari administration, with everything, I thought maybe the process should be allowed to continue. And then errors will be made, there will be corrections, and then we'll continue to work on it and strengthen the institutions of democracy. But that was not to be. But when the military came in and then they promised to hand over, they came out, Babangida now replaced Buhari. And of course, as you know, under the Buhari administration, there was a lot of totalitarian rule. I mean, people were arrested arbitrarily. Many of them, especially the politicians, they were humiliated. And some died in prison or shortly after leaving prison. And there was an attempt to demonize democracy, to make it look as if it's not going to work or it's not going to work in Nigeria. And then at the point, the military felt that Buhari was no longer implementing their policy, and they removed him. Then when Babangida came in, relatively popular, people said, well, this one is smiling. Buhari wasn't smiling, Diabo wasn't smiling, but this one is smiling, so let's hope he's going to give us something. Then we started seeing him shifting the goalposts, deceiving the Nigerian people. And I remember Akaba Shorun, and the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, said, look, everybody is talking about a secret agenda. This man doesn't have a secret agenda. He has an open agenda to capture the state, to entrench the culture of militarism, to demonize the political class so that the military will be at the hierarchy, at the apex of decision-making in Nigeria for many years to come. This is his agenda. So the politicians were speaking on the side, but many of them were afraid of coming out to confront the military. So in 1987, we set up the Civil Liberties Organization, led by Olisa Bakoba, Clement Wankwo, myself, Richard Akinola, and a couple of others. And then we started bringing in young people, young students, activists from the universities, like Chima Obani that was mentioned by the president in the speech, and many others, IOB and all. And then we started working. So we worked for almost 8 years or close to 10 years before June 12. And when June 12 there were a series of attempts to hold elections. The military were dictating every tune. That they even created political parties, SDP and NRC, that will qualify to contest election. All the other associations that were supposed to register to participate in the election were not allowed. The press was muzzled. People were assassinated. People were detained. There were a lot of executions in the military itself. So when June 12 happened, we felt, well, the time has come for us to have democracy. And the Nigerian people trooped out en masse. Everywhere was peaceful. The election was properly conducted. The result was already coming out. In fact, the results were already released across the country in different polling units and police stations across the country. But the military at the point now said, well, this is going to threaten our stranglehold on the state and the nation and the democratic process. So we must continue to control it. So they annulled the election. And then, well, okay, you have annulled the election, but this is not going to stand. And I remember when we were in Geneva during the Human Rights Conference, I remember Malaysia Inca saying, look, this is like pregnancy. It will show the outcome, it will bear fruit. We're not to know the type of fruit that it bore, that will come out, but I know that the struggle started immediately. In July, around I think July 6th, we lost about 200 people in Third Mainland, Lagos, who were protesting. They were killed. Some jumped into the lagoon and in the street of Lagos. At the point we took control of the city, the streets, and there were a lot of massacres, a lot of arrests. People were subdued and subjected to untold hardship. So the press was now evolving into a fascist state. And then, but we didn't allow that to stop us. We continued the struggle. Of course, it gained traction. The labor unions came in, the Nupeng and other, of course, you had the name of Kokori mentioned, the Secretary General of Nupeng, and then other oil workers union came in. And then the NADECO now evolved. NADECO was formed. And I recall the first person to use that word, NADECO, was Chief, when I remember the name, I'll mention it. But the election was free and fair. But we insisted it must produce, the outcome must be respected. We started mobilizing the international community. You know, I was trying to mention Olufalaye was the first person to use that word, NADECO. So all the elders who came together, like Atoni Nahoro, those who were assassinated from Rwanda and others, they were all playing their role. And of course, Kudi Abiola, the martyr of the struggle, who was killed, who was assassinated in the street of Lagos, played a very prominent role beyond what was expected of her. Well, people thought she was just a common housewife, but she was very articulate, and she was very clear. She was very clear-headed, and she knows exactly what Nigerians should be. Not just the fact that she wanted her husband to be president. And then, of course, Abiola was arrested. Initially, he left the country, but he came back and tried to reclaim his mandate. He was arrested. He died in prison. I was arrested when the military was now turning on itself. But Abacha came up with what they call a coup. What we thought it was a phantom coup. There was no real coup. And he was trying to eliminate his opponents. So we had a press conference in the house of Beko Asonkuti on the 26th of July 1996. 1995. The day after the conference, the next this man was arrested. Beko was arrested, and then Tunji Abayomi the next day, 27th. Then on the 28th, I was arrested. Well, they had been arresting us before, raiding our offices, seizing our computers, seizing our documents and all that. I thought maybe after 1 or 2 weeks, we'll be asked to go, and then we'll continue the struggle. I remember they tried to arrest me in Jos about a month earlier. Myself and Chima Obane, we had a conference at the Catholic facility there.
Mr. Oroh,
we were able to escape.
No.
So it was a very, very harsh situation. And after my arrest, I spent a year in detention. It was I didn't even know I had the capacity to withstand such situation, because I'm a very restless person. I like to move around. I like to move.
Mr. Oroh, if I'm a button,
keeping me in solitary confinement.
Yeah, apologies if I'm a button. There's a lot of history, and we deliberately allowed you to share as much as you could, so that those who did witness what it meant to be part of the struggle from the trenches will really understand that this was really a struggle. And you painted a picture that showed that everybody involved was determined, with the support of the Nigerian people, to ensure that democracy is enshrined and restored. So looking back at all the struggle, when you look now at what is going on in the country, or just this present era, I'm not talking about just this administration, would you say this is what those of you in the trenches fought for?
Well, I was...
Please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I would say that democracy, as I started by saying that democracy is a journey. It's a means to an end. Now we have a freer society. People are not being arrested arbitrarily. People are not being assassinated in the streets. Well, we have crime, we have the Boko Haram, we have banditry, we have other problems, other criminality. But political assassinations, crackdown on journalists, killing of journalists, and arresting people arbitrarily is not what we are experiencing now. Now we have institutions, we have had a series of elections. These elections are not perfect by any means, but they have produced successions across the country, all over the many states. We have been elected parliaments across the states. At the federal level, now we have a new president that is spending the first year in office. The press is relatively free. Right now, at that time, during this period I'm talking about, I probably would not be in this studio now talking to you. Now we have the civil society is still there, waxing stronger, doing different things. Some are in anti-corruption crusade. Some are fighting for the rights of women, of children, and other social problems. But we still need to, because of the problems of insecurity that we have now, there is the general belief that democracy is not working as it should. I tend to share the belief that this is not exactly what we anticipated. But I also try to understand the fact that, yeah, it may not be what we anticipated, but it's happening. And how do we deal with it? we can deal with it by strengthening the institutions to deal with it. The rule of law. We must eliminate arbitrariness. We must eliminate impunity. If somebody is arrested, he must be prosecuted. And the judiciary should be independent, should be free to, it should not be under any political control. The law enforcement must not be under any political control. They should be professional, they should be well trained, they should be well equipped, and they should have the means, the resources to deal with criminality. And then the prosecution must also be professional. And then if the rule of law prevails, if justice prevails, and if people see that if you can get remedy for an infraction on your rights, then they will believe more in democracy. But I also believe that there is need for us to strengthen, to protect the integrity of the electoral process. It needs thorough reforms. We should believe in it. It must deliver the outcome the people expect. So that they will continue to go to the polls every now and then to vote, to throw out those they don't want and then elect those that they want. There is a lot of things to be done. But of course, there must be socio-economic deliverables. The social condition of the people. They should be able to develop, in the country without any hindrance. Farmers should be able to work in their farms with the support of the state, providing implements, the improved seedlings and everything. All those things that will make food for us to achieve food security. Then the traders should be free to trade across the country without hindrance. Then the businessmen should know whatever they are doing is predictable. They should have access to the banks to credit and everything they need to do. And then the state must continue to work on infrastructure. Our infrastructure are in deplorable condition generally across the country. So by the time they see the government touching their lives, doing what they are supposed to do, and then corruption is reduced or eliminated. And then the situation like what we have in Port Harcourt, the godfatherism, state capture, people believing that the state is mine. I can determine what happens in my state because the state is mine, the government is mine, the resources are mine. If we eliminate such tendencies, I think the people will now be able to have more confidence in democracy. But for now, we still have these problems and we must have to work on them.
If we allowed you, your narrative about the many challenges of our democracy would go on and on. But one of the key takeaways from the start of your commentary is indeed that democracy that you fought for, at least relatively, we have a freer society, not quoting you copiously now. Just to support what the president said yesterday, he went on to argue in favor of democracy, which is one of the things that we noted, is that democracy is the best form of government despite all of the complexities, and that there cannot be a democracy without elections. But the key question is, regardless of this argument in favor of democracy, has democracy guaranteed development? And is the president's apology for democracy, is it an acknowledgement of the continental discontent that we have seen on democracies around us, our neighbors, our neighboring countries, which have necessitated or engendered coups, and for which the president is now saying, look, the democracy is the best form of government?
Well, I would like to say that you can develop through totalitarian means, killing people, crushing them, demolishes people's homes. You don't listen to the people, and then you deliver what you call development. You can have the Chinese variant. You can have the Russian variant. But we also know that democracy guarantees peace. It respects the rights of people. It gives people equal opportunity to develop at their own pace, to take decisions by themselves. So you can also develop under democracy. And I believe Nigeria can only be governed properly and effectively and peacefully as a democracy. I believe in democracy. I believe it works and that it can work here. Because the people are responding to it. The people are responding to democracy. When you call out the people to vote, they come out to vote. But there are also some people, especially in the political what they call the political class, who do not believe in democracy. If they believe in democracy, they wouldn't say I must win at all costs. They would know that an election victory is a victory for the people, not for individuals, and that there is a tenure, there is a term limit, you know, and that if you don't win, it's not a tragedy. That you can win again if you try, you know, or if you convince the people that you are the best candidate, you can come around again and contest and you win. So that is the way I see it. I believe that we can't develop under a democracy because it would be at peace with ourselves. The system will be self-restraining. It will be, and then if something happens, we respond democratically. The institutions will respond. You know, the rule of law will respond. The law enforcement, which is part of it, the judiciary, the executive will respect all the regulations, the rules and regulations, and then that is how we can. If we have these strong institutions responding to the needs of the people, then we can have democracy, and then we can also have development. Right. Because if you say, okay, we have a budget, this budget is meant for road construction, and then you don't steal 50% of it, or collude with the engineers in the ministry or the contractors who undermine that project, then you have development. So I believe that democracy can lead to development. Right. It's happening in many countries, in Europe, in the United States. It's happening. You need to go there. It unleashes the people's potentials. People can think innovative, you know, without being restrained. So I think democracy works, and it can work here in Nigeria. Nigerians are very strong, they're very resilient people. Nigerians are very, you could say, brilliant people. Everybody is saying it. I'm not the only one saying it. Look at our artists operating a free environment and delivery. Where you can also see our athletes do the same thing. You see our cultural sector, the Nollywood, delivering and being applauded all over the country. And then you see our cuisine now becoming global. The people are now beginning to eat Nigerian food everywhere in the world. Right. So there is something about Nigeria that is working. And all this we need to harness and then give them proper space, a free space, a conducive space, right, to thrive. Right. I believe we can develop as a democracy. It is possible. But right now, we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of challenges. And all Nigerians, we need to put our hands on deck to get things right. Especially those at the leadership level, because there is a nexus between good governance and effective leadership. If you don't have effective leadership, you don't have good governance.
If I could just comment now, Honorable, quite interesting examples you gave, really, about the sectors that are working. But it's interesting to also note that those sectors are not related to government. It's been said that those sectors literally self-thrived in spite of all of the challenges around us, but obviously lessons to be learned. But I'd like you to speak to something. We've talked about how we've had 25 years of unbroken democracy. You said democracy works, but obviously it is not working the way it ought to in this part of the world. But when you look closely at those 25 years, I wonder if this is what is responsible, because over 60% of those 25 years, we had people that were military dictators as democratic leaders. So former President Olusegun Obasanjo had been a military head, so he took 8 years. Then we had former President Muhammadu Buhari, who had also been a military dictator, taking another 8 years. So 16 of those 25 years were manned by military people, or at least retired military people. Interestingly, the man who paved the way for current President Bola Tinubu, who then fought against military dictatorship, was former President Muhammadu Buhari. So don't you think that's a contradiction? And that is also, or at least has affected the delivery of democracy dividends in Nigeria?
Yeah, okay. Let me say that it is not the where many people will remember Ansi Howard, former president of the United States, who led the Allied troops during World War II. He became president of the United States under a constitution. He was elected by the people to rule, and then he did his own and handed over to Kennedy, who was very popular from an opposition party. So I believe that what we have had, what we still have now is a transition process. We are still trying to entrench democracy. The military felt, those who were part of the previous administration, like Obasanjo, I think he was probably forced to come back by circumstances. The mistake we made was that when Abacha died, I remember Abdul Salami took over and a new transition program came out. Those of us who were fighting for democracy decided to sit back and watch. You know, we didn't come out to say, look, we didn't mobilize across the country to say, this is our time to capture power. And I remember the president of South Africa came here, Thabo Mbeki, I think maybe he was vice president then, and said, look, guys, if you cannot enter through the door, enter through the window. You are the first liberation movement, that is the word he used, that I've seen that is not interested in capturing political power. You said you want to hand over the power to the people. Who? The military is saying that they want to hand over to the people. So who are the people? You are the people. So you lead the people to capture political power. We couldn't agree on whether we should participate in politics or not. Of course, some of us felt it would happen. Then in Lagos State, Tinubu and others came out and set up Alliance for Democracy, and they won in all the southwest states. That was the first step. It could have been national, but that was the first step. Then the military now said, look, we need to protect our interests. Let us find somebody who will protect our interests. And then they installed Obasanjo to lead the country. And Obasanjo further entrenched the culture of militarism. Even though he had some civic sides, he respected some people, he was restrained by the Constitution. But you can see that in the early stages, he didn't even believe in the National Assembly. He was fighting the National Assembly, trying to install somebody, and then he had an ambitious vice president who was also trying to snatch power from him. So there was instability in the early stages, you know, and there was also problems in the Niger Delta. His response was military to massacre in Benue State and all that. How did the movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta, how was it disarmed? It was not disarmed by the military. It was when Yar'Adua came in, that succeeded Obasanjo, that he decided to go into negotiation. That is democracy at work. He negotiated, gave them promises, gave them assurances, and these people started surrendering arms. I'm not saying that all the arms have been surrendered. I'm not saying we still don't have pockets of criminality here and there, but generally, that was nipped in the bud. And then the nation got a fresh lease of life. You know, and then the struggle continues, as I said. Then Jonathan came in, Yar'Adua died unfortunately. Jonathan came in, and at the end of Jonathan's administration, when he felt that he had lost the election, he voluntarily relinquished power. Voluntarily. That was an act of a statesman. You know, and then Buhari, who had been contesting and not contesting, got his chance with the support of Tinubu and the party I belong to, the APC, which wasn't called APC then, got his chance and then became president. But when he became president, he started trying to revive the culture of militarism. So he didn't implement the manifesto of the party. Many people were marginalized. He governed as he wished, used his way, but at the end of the day, because of democracy, because of the Constitution, he had to step down after 8 years. So I believe there is something about it that is making it impossible for those who wish to stay in power to be removed through the democratic process, and then a new set of people who can consolidate democracy or who feels they can consolidate democracy to replace them. So I think there's something about democracy that we must celebrate after 25 years. Yeah.
If I may butt in two questions, which are, it's almost certain for analysts that the era of dictators coming back for democratic rule is over, because you can literally see the entire old guys are in their 80s or late 70s. They may never come back again. We don't see that happening. So now the hope is that civilians will really run things from here. And now we have President Bola Tinubu. But one of the big questions, he was an advocate of a couple of things that has to do with democracy. is the issue of restructuring, which I want you to speak to. And I'm sure within the trenches, this was a conversation. Now, people are saying, proposing 1-year term, a single term of 6 years on one hand. The states across, the subnationals, as we look at them, a lot of them are not doing well in terms of their finances, in terms of financial viability. There's a data to support what I've said. I mean, majority of them are not doing well without FAC. So that now brings the call for restructuring, but we're not seeing anything, strongly in that direction. Whether it's too early to expect is another kettle of fish. I want you to speak to the issue of restructuring and the presidency under President Bola Tinubu. Is this something you think he should tinker with as soon as possible?
Well, I think... Can I go on?
Go on, please.
Okay. I think restructuring is already happening. Since 1999, I think there have been about 7 amendments to the Constitution to deal with various issues. Now there are proposals to deal with other issues. Like, for instance, the president has proposed that the local government system should be restored as a unit of government. That is one of the federating units of the federation. I also believe that Nigeria is better off as a federal system with local autonomies, states and local government working effectively to develop at the local level, to develop their people based on the needs of their people, based on the resources of their people. I believe in that. I believe in fiscal federalism. That is to say, let us share these resources based on this principle of derivables. This is where the resources is coming from. The people who are custodian of that resources, those resources should have a say on how it is managed, how it is exploited, and they should benefit from the exploitation. I believe in that. Then I also believe that we have too many states. We have too many states. If I have my way, I would say we return to the 12-state structure that the military created in 1967. You could say, yes, they were military creation. Yes, they were, but they reflected the way the Nigeria was divided at that time. If the military had left early enough, if we didn't have a civil war, probably Nigeria would have been better developed than it is now. We would not have frittered away resources in bureaucracy, creating institutions, duplicating institutions here and there. So I actually believe that we need to do more in terms of restructuring. I don't believe we should go back to 1959 or 1963 to do a parliamentary system. It didn't work here before. That is why we opted for the presidential system. We can continue to have the presidential system. We can restructure all the various institutions. Like the president said recently that he's going to implement the Oroh's report. There are lots to be adopted there. Slap some of these federal institutions, merge some of them, trim them, train the staff, the bureaucracy, and then give them the resources to work as independent as possible as state institutions. And then the state government should also respect the fact that the local government is a governor does not own the local government. The resources available to the local government should be used to develop those local government areas, not for the governor to use it to do whatever he likes. But then we also have the traditional institutions which is competing with the state for loyalty. We have to look at it. Is there a space for them in our democracy? If there is no space for them in our democracy, then we must define a role for them. Or if we can't stop them, then we must define a role for them. In Ghana, the state does not support traditional institutions. It is the people that support their traditional institutions. So we can say, look, if you want to have an emir or a king or an oba, it's your responsibility. You take care of him. But we will not use state resources to support him. That is it. You keep him as your traditional council, or you keep him as your emirate council, but that is your responsibility. But the state will not be responsible for his car, for his staff, for everything he does. But culturally, maybe the Ministry of Culture can relate with them to advance our cultural values, to practice our, to develop our culture. as long as they are not interfering with the rights of people as citizens, you know. So we can look at a whole lot of the systems we are practicing in Nigeria that are working against democracy, that are retarding our democratic progress. So, so the structure of the country is absolutely necessary. But whether we should go back to one term, or that is not the issue. If you have, say, a term of 6 years, can you guarantee a free and fair election? I'll be happier if we are able to reform the electoral system and that respects the rights of the people, that respects the aspiration of the people, that delivers on what the people want, the vote of the people ends at the ballot and not in the Supreme Court. Then that will be better. That will produce better leaders than, or that will help our leadership selection, our process of leadership selection, than saying, okay, 6 years you go, another person comes. Let the people decide how many times you will be in power. That should be the right of the people to decide. But the process of, what is more important is the process of bringing you out to rule, to lead the people. It must be what the people want, and it must be through their votes. In a free and fair democratic process, in a free and fair election.
So while we wait...
One problem that we have been having in Nigeria, one problem that we have been having in Nigeria since '59, including the '64 election, even to count our people in population census, we have not been able to do it successfully because of political interest, because of political interference. So once we can trust ourselves sufficiently to deliver on what, to give voice to the people the way they want it, then Nigeria will fly. That is the way I say it. To conduct elections is not difficult. I have contested elections. I have covered elections as a journalist. I have trained election monitors as a civil society leader. And I know how elections are rigged. I have seen it, and I know how it's done. It is a deliberate act, supported by the states, with state resources, the police, that is the security network, with thugs. You know, some of these thugs wear police uniform. You know, it is not the people that are making it impossible for us to have free and fair elections. It is the vested interest that says we must win at all costs that are making it difficult for us to have free and fair elections. So when we can deal with all that, and then Nigeria will fly. Look at South Africa. They had an election recently. You didn't hear a single person killed.
So while we continue to...
Everybody accepted the outcome.
So while we continue to expect the process to produce good leaders, President Tinubu, in his speech yesterday, may have, given a template by which they should conduct themselves. And that's what I'm going to read from. That would be paragraph 23 of President's speech yesterday. And he said, where other forms of government impose against the will of the people, democracy aims to make leaders sufficiently humble that they conduct themselves as servants of the common good, not as viceroys of the narrow interests of the mighty. So the question is, when you look at the political class now, either it's at the executive or the legislature, or even at the subnational levels, does the lifestyle reflect this template that the president is depicting as what should be representative of the conduct of democratic leaders?
Well, I think the president captured the idea.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the president captured nicely what should be the ideal situation. How politicians must conduct themselves. How political leaders must conduct themselves. How they must relate with the people. But it is now up to the leaders, and in this case, the president will show a vision to lead the process. To say, if you are my minister and you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't do this, you are out. If you are arrested, or if there is a case of corruption against you, you will face the law, instead of running away from the law enforcement agencies. Whether you are a governor or, like you said, at all levels, whether subnational, national, and local government, at all levels, you must respect the rule of law. You must respect the financial regulations of your ministry. You must, if you are a prison official, you are given money to take care of prisoners and to reform them, you must do exactly what you have been told to do. And you are a custom officer, you are collecting your revenues, you must pay them according to how you are asked to pay them, to the source. where they can be available for the government to use in the interest of the people. You know, I think that is basically what it is all about. Like I said, there is a nexus between good governance and effective leadership. The leadership must be transformational. It must have a vision. It must have the will, the political will to get certain things done. If he says, this is what the people want and I want to do it, then go ahead and give it a shot. Go ahead and do it. Heaven will not fall as far as we are doing it in the interest of the people. If you need to take a bill to the parliament, send that bill to the National Assembly. Where is the Lawal Waste report? Lawal Waste report that was supposed to be used to reform to reform the electoral system. We have not done anything about it. It's still there, you know. I think they gave the Secretary to the federal government 12 weeks to bring out a document that they will use to restructure the civil service. I think it was more than 12 weeks now. What is it? I think the president will move with greater speed to get certain things done, to enforce the change that he wants to push through. Because in another a year or two, it will be the election season. And then everything now will depend on political exigencies and necessities.
Honorable,
so I believe this is the time to hit the iron when it's hot.
Yeah. Honorable, quite insightful. We're not done yet having this conversation with you, and it's quite important that we're having the conversation with the persons, or one of the persons in the trenches. And there are issues that are still around us, potential issues that could cause some, polity unease, which is some of the questions we'll be asking you next. But we'll take this quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with you. Join us again. Honorable Abdul Oroh, former member of the House of Representatives, one of the persons who fought for this democracy in the trenches in 1993, is still with us in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Honorable, for being with us. And it's quite important, as I said, we have this conversation with the persons in the know. But let's move forward. Now, there is a bit of an unease in the polity, which I want you to speak to. The labor union and the federal government, as well as the organized private sector in the Tripartite Committee, have been trying to get some level of a moderation in what could stand as a minimum wage. Labour is saying 250,000 naira or nothing. The federal government and organized private sector is saying 62,000 naira is what they can offer. The president says he has received those proposals. He will forward it to the National Assembly. We don't know which of them he will forward and how much he will forward. But Labour has come out to say we did not have any agreement, but just in case you forget, we are still standing on our 250,000. This is what democracy is really all about. I want your take on what should it be in terms of approach to collective bargaining? Because on one hand, people are saying, if we pay Labour this, it's going to crumble the economy. Labour is saying, we are charging you based on what is going on in the economy. Mr. Abdul.
Yeah, let me say that there has been over...
Please go ahead.
Yeah, let me say that over time there has been that trust issue between labor and government, between organized, whether it's ASU, you can call them labor, and government. That is, there will be agreements, they are not implemented faithfully. Because of this gap, because of this problem of trust, that is why you see labor is seen as not being realistic or responsible. But let me put it this way. It all boils down to leadership. If a labor minister who knows his duty is appointed as minister, there should be no strike. He should foresee it. He should relate with the trade unions, the workers' unions. There should be the conversation should be an ongoing conversation. You don't even have to wait for the labor unions to give you to put a deadline to say, look, you must implement this by so and so date or we'll go on strike. This is the 4th or 5th strike we're having in 1 year. It's disruptive. It's destroyed the economy. It's weakening the fabrics of the state. So I believe that don't go into negotiation if you know you are not going to implement it. But you must go into negotiation because we are in a democracy. But if you go into a negotiation, if there is an agreement, you must enforce it. Is it now that we know that it's not just the federal government that has to do with trade unions? We have the private sector. We have the subnationals. You know, we have small businesses. A lawyer with 4 or 5 staff in his chambers, or a restaurant with 3 or 4 or 5 people in the kitchen, or the cocktail staff. Can they pay this amount? There has to be There has to be trust. The negotiation should be in such a way that everybody will understand the issues. The labor unions will understand what the state of the economy is and the capacity of the state and of the economy. And then the state should not hide anything. It should bring everything on the table to say, look, this is what we have. This is what we can. This is how we can do it effectively.
A quick one there, Honorable.
Once they know that it is possible, it will reduce the incidence of strikes. So right now, people are okay. 65,000 to 50,000. For me, those are not the issues. If 3 or 4 months ago we see buses in the streets of Abuja, we see state government. Remember when the president released money for palliatives, and then we see the palliatives touching the lives of the people in terms of maybe public transport system, the health care, more food, reduction in prices of food, and all that. Labour will now understand that the resources available are being used to meet the needs of the people. Then they will not be asking for something that is unreasonable. That is the way I say it. I think the governor should be more proactive. And that the federal government, once you have taken a decision to do something, for instance, like me, I'm opposed to giving money out to individuals. This guy cash transfer. Use the money to buy buses. Use it to buy things drugs in hospitals, put something in schools, especially at the basic level, and then at the university. If you put internet in all the universities, put solar systems in all the universities, people will see what we are doing. How we are trying to reach the people. That is the palliatives. Those should be the real palliatives. Not cash transfer. I am opposed to cash transfer. I think it's fraudulent.
So a quick one there.
Once they see something happening that will improve the lives of the people, definitely they will accept it. They will listen to the government more. They will say, this government is reasonable. This government is doing the right thing. Let us work together. Not just the federal government now. I'm talking about the subnationals, and then the private sector too. They also contribute.
So because of the imperfection of the process, I noted that you said that if it had been well managed, there would be no strike. Are you then questioning the competence of the Labour Minister in handling all of this?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Well, on a final note, Honourable, it's been quite an interesting conversation with you about what we ordered in terms of democracy versus what we have or we are getting right now. But I'd like you to speak to this on a final note. It's been said that the people who fought for democracy in that sense, because they were close to the current president now, they seem to have a soft spot for him and they're not going as tough on him as they would or as they did then. So you have people asking, for example, why is Professor Wole Soyinka saying 1 year is too short to rate the president when these policies are clear to be seen? Some other people saying it looks like those democracy vanguards have now become people in government. So they ask, was it really fight for democracy or just fight for power?
Let me
Just go ahead.
Look at the number of ministers. Look at the number of appointees since the president came in. Tell me how many of them fought for democracy. So if you can tell me how many of them fought for democracy, then I'll be able to know whether those who fought for democracy are in power or not. Yes, the president fought for democracy. Well, when he now enters the political democratic space, he worked with some people in the political parties, at various levels. Then where in his forming his government, that is his prerogative. He brought in some they consider technocrats here and there, and all that. They are there working, doing their own. But I cannot say that those who fought for democracy are well represented in this government or in all the appointments that have been made by the president. With due respect to him. You know, it's not. I'm not belly aching. I'm not complaining, but I believe that is the feeling. That is the general feeling in the civil society and in the pro-democracy society. That they fought, yes, they fought, but they are not part of the government. But that, and I also believe too that is the reason why they are not. They seem to be giving the president the space to work. That is what I would call it, the space to work. We think democracy. The tools you use in fighting for democracy are not the same tools you use to consolidate democracy. Now, the objective was to get out the military so that the people can decide. Now, you could question the quality of what the people have decided or the quality of the outcome of what the people have decided since 1999, but you cannot now say you must work to undermine it. What you can do is what we are doing now, so making suggestions, exercising our rights to speak out, criticize what we can criticize, make the certain judgment here and there, or suggestions on how to improve on what we have on ground. But I know some people are pushing, okay, military here, military is Mali, military is this. Look at those countries, how many of them have ever had genuine democracy? They have never had. We are working on it. We have been working on democratization.
Right.
And we're going to work on democratization. Even if the president Tinubu's tenure ends now, whoever comes in, it will be the same approach. When Obasanjo came in spite of the challenges, the civil society organized a meeting. I led the meeting. I was the one who initiated the conversation, to have a conversation with the president. And he agreed to meet with us. Right. I went through his agency, and he invited us to a meeting. We told them what we need to do. We complained about the harassment of Okadibo, all the issues that we had with his government.
It's been quite an exhaustive.
So we have to continue to engage. We have to engage both at formal and informal level.
Indeed.
To see working for the country.
And I think that's a major takeaway from this conversation. But I would like to thank you so much. It's been very interesting learning from your experience and using those lessons for today and hopefully for tomorrow. I would like to thank you so much, Honorable Abdul Oroh, former member, House of Representatives, former Executive Director, CLO, Civil Liberties Organization, also journalist, lawyer, and human rights activist. Thank you for your time. And it's good to see you again. I imagine a lot of people seeing you right now and saying,
before we go, let me promote. Before we go, let me say that my memoir will be out hopefully next month.
Beautiful.
Yes. I have captured my experience. I have captured my experience in a book. Hopefully, it should be coming out next month. Yeah.
Beautiful. We look forward to that. Thank you again, sir, for your time.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we anchor. We always say the labors of our heroes past, yes, may not be in our new national anthem, but it should be in our subconscious. And don't forget that you and I, we're all heroes in the making now, and it depends on what we choose to do today, tomorrow, and the next. Well, thank you for being a part of the Morning Brief today. Sunrise Daily is next. I'm Kayode Okikelu.
Well, they say eternal vigilance is the price of liberty and by extension, democracy. So we'll keep the vigil continuously. Thank you for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow for the final edition that will commence the weekend. I am Bukola Koka.
All right, mine is a simple appeal. Don't give up on Nigeria, and God bless Nigeria. Thank you for watching. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma.